Hey guys, how you doing? Today I want to do something kind of interesting because I've been thinking about the idea of, is it possible for young people to just use the TFSA for retirement and forget about the RSP? Absolutely. And this is going to be great for RSP haters. So, if you hate RSPs, please chime in the comments. Let us know how much you hate them. We love the engagement. I know this is also kind of a pipe dream because I'm going to be using an example of somebody starting at 35 that's actually able to save money. And I know that's actually not possible. Nobody under 35 has the ability to save any money whatsoever. But let's pretend for a second that the world's just not going all to hell. So I've got an example here where you're using a 35-year-old person in Alberta, but I'll talk about the other provinces because they're important, who is maxing out their TFSA every year. They're not catching up on the unused room, but they're going to put $7,000 into it every year from the age 35 until 65, and then they're going to retire at 65 and live until the age of 90. And then in the other example, I'm going to use somebody that is in a 30% marginal tax bracket, even though that doesn't exist, but we're going to use that in this case because it's 30.5, whatever. However, so the person with the RSP strategy is going to be putting $10,000 per year into their RSP every year from 35 until 65. They're going to get a $3,000 refund. After tax, out of pocket, whichever way you want to look at it, they're both investing $7,000 out of their own pocket every year. So at the age of 65, the TFSA is going to be worth $604,700 if they got a 6.5% rate of return, and the RSP is going to be worth $863,800 if they got that same 6.5 rate of return. Now what I've done from 65 to 90 is reduce the potential rate of return to 5%, just because people usually lower their risk tolerance, maybe have some more in cash or fixed income when they enter into retirement. And certainly you could get better returns or whatever, but this is just an apples to apples comparison. So the RSP is at 863, the TFSA is at 604. What kind of income could this produce in today's dollars, indexed to inflation from 65 to 90? In Alberta, after tax, this person's going to be able to live on $50,900 per year in today's dollars, indexed to inflation, so a little over $4,000 per month. And, they're going to be paying an average tax rate of 15.86%. So they have definitely won on the RSP side. They got a 30% refund, and they're paying 15.86 on average to pull it out of there. Now, in both case scenarios, we're both taking CPP and OAS at 65, and the CPP is 100% maxed out. So that's not the case for the average Canadian, but this is just my example. Now, the TFSA, on the other hand, is going to be able to produce a lifetime income of $48,900 per year, or $2,000 less per year, indexed to inflation. Over 25 years, $2,000 per year indexed to inflation actually adds up to quite a bit. So in the Alberta case, as far as just income is concerned, the RSP is going to win by $2,000 per year. However, every tax rate in every province is a little bit different. They've got different tax credits and different things going on and different basic personal amounts. So some provinces, this is going to work better than others. In some provinces, the RSP actually wins a little bit more than others, and in some provinces, the RSP actually loses. So the very best province, based on today's tax rates, is Ontario, where they'd be able to live off $51,000 per year compared to Alberta and BC, which are at $50,900. And the absolute worst one, the province that hates, their low-income seniors the most, is Nova Scotia, where they're going to only be able to live off $47,600 per year after tax in retirement. So in Nova Scotia, just from the income potential, you're going to actually just want to use the TFSA. Now keep in mind, this is based on a 30% marginal tax rate, but if you are in the much higher tax bracket, so you're potentially getting 48 or 50% back for every dollar that you put into your RSP, well then the RSP is going to be a bigger winner in those cases. But if you're really low income and you're in like the 25% tax bracket, the TFSA is probably going to win every single time. So this does depend on province and how much money you actually make, and is this going to be enough for you to actually live comfortably in retirement, because there are going to be limits to what the TFSA only retirement is going to be able to achieve based on your age and your rate of return and all these other things, because you can't necessarily save more. And I'll always go back to the idea that still my favorite retirement plan is to save into your RSP, take the refund, and re-put that back into your TFSA. I still think that's the best, but in this case I am really liking the TFSA, and I'm going to talk about why. Because sure, the RSP has won on the income based on no planning whatsoever. However, one of the great things about the TFSA is that you're going to basically be able to have your taxable income near zero. The only taxable income you're going to have is OAS and CPP in retirement, which is going to keep your income really low, which is going to allow you to, get access to government benefits for low-income seniors. You're going to get different tax credits and a whole bunch of different things that are going to be available at that time, hopefully, if our government's not bankrupt. But one of the main things that's going to be able to happen is that you're going to be able to plan on delaying your CPP until 70, and instead of taking CPP, only living off of OAS, GIS, and the TFSA income, which I've done a video on this just before this where I explain it in more detail, talking about how low income retirees with low savings should focus on the TFSA for early retirement, which will allow them to access GIS from 65 until 70, or in this case, 66 until 71. Now, if you do that, you're actually going to be able to increase your potential income to $56,100 per year in Alberta. So that's actually a pretty significant increase, because it allows you to delay CPP until 70, get that 42% increase, use GIS in the place of CPP during those first 5 years of retirement. The other thing that happens with the TFSA is that you're going to have way more flexibility, but this could be a bad thing, especially in the saving years or the accumulation years. You might look at your account and say, I've got tons in there, I've got a few $100,000, it's not going to impact me whatsoever to take out $20,000 to buy that golden jet ski or whatever the heck you want. So that could be a problem where, with the RSP, you're going to be, a little less likely to access that money, because you are going to be taxed and see that as a penalty. So you might be more willing to keep that money long-term in the RSP. Now, in retirement, the full-blown TFSA is going to work better during those stages where you have like an emergency or something like that. You need that extra expense to fix your house or whatever. You can access $10,000 without paying 30% in tax to get that money out. So the flexibility with the TFSA could be a good thing, probably, if you're diligent with your money, but if you're not, then it might actually be a hindrance to your plan. As far as tax, obviously with the TFSA route, you're going to be paying way less tax over your lifetime, especially in retirement. The average tax rate with the TFSA plan in Alberta is 4.54%. compared to 15.86 with the RSP plan. So you're going to be happy about that. And in every case, and this is one of the reasons why people hate on RSP so much, is your estate isn't going to owe any tax on the TFSA when you die. So in every case, even though the account is smaller, it's going to work out that your estate is going to be left with more money after tax, because You don't have to pay any tax on that whatsoever when you pass away. Your beneficiaries are just going to get it, or your estate is going to get it completely tax-free, which is awesome. So I ran this scenario and I said, well, what if this person dies at 80? What's the difference? At 80 years old, if it was exactly apples to apples like I showed, the person with the TFSA strategy is going to have $71,000 more for their estate than the person that had all of their money in their RSP. So in my opinion, in this case at least, where your marginal tax rate is 30.5%, you're only able to save $7,000 or $10,000 per year. All of these other things, the TFSA is pretty much clearly the winner because you have more strategies that you can implement, more flexibility. You can increase your income by using that GIS strategy. Your estate's going to be bigger. There's going to be more flexibility. We got to love the TFSA. They are basically the best tool we have for, accumulating wealth and, helping to add flexibility into your retirement plan. So I think it's great. Sound off in the comments if you think, this is absolute garbage take or whatever, or you just hate RSPs, and hope to see you soon. Thanks.